Okay, so today we are going to be reviewing the Convoluted Universe Book 3. I finally got to finish it. So here it is. Sorry, I'm trying to get my ring light not to show so much. That's that. I love the covers of the books so much. And, okay. So I want to start off with this. If you saw physically all the energy beings that I'm about to mention, or any of the spaceships that I've mentioned before, or whatever, you still wouldn't believe it. And I know it. You say evidence and proof will make you believe, but I know it won't be enough. There is nothing I can show you that will make you believe unless you so choose to believe on your own. There will never be enough proof to convince a true skeptic, and a believer does not need proof. So that's my intro, and I'm gonna start immediately reading from the book. So I'll let you guys know when I'm reading directly from the book. So this is what Dolores is saying in the book, okay? During one of my other sessions, I was told that many of our dreams are messages from our subconscious. And because they are delivered in symbols, they are very difficult for our conscious mind to understand. Many of my clients bring pages of their dreams to the session, wanting an explanation for them. The subconscious always says that they are easy to understand once you focus your attention on the symbols. Just as dreams are messages, so are nightmares. If the subconscious has tried to get a message across in many different ways, and the person doesn't understand, it will try to deliver the message more forcefully than in a nightmare. What better way to get your attention than to frighten you? You will definitely remember a nightmare if it causes fear when you awaken suddenly. The symbols then will be fresh in your mind and can be studied more closely. Okay, this is another picture I took from the book. At one of my hypnosis classes, a woman brought up a point that did not apply to my technique that I was teaching. It really was a deviation or distraction, but I could not let it slide. So I attempted to answer it. I was discussing how we have to be everything when we decide to incarnate on Earth. Everything meaning gas, minerals, rocks, plants, animals, and then all phases of the human condition. This was because God was curious and wanted to learn, and so he sent out us as cells in the body of God to learn as much as we possibly could and bring this knowledge back to be added to his gigantic computer storehouse. We would continue to journey out again and again until we could graduate and finally return home to the source and stay. The woman said she could not believe that theory because God was already all-knowing. He had all knowledge. He did not need us. According to what I have learned, that would not appear to be true. He is a compilation of what each and every one of us have deposited in him over eons of time. He is constantly searching, and out of his insatiable curiosity, he desires to learn unceasingly. Thus, he is constantly creating more and more diverse forms. And so she asked what he could possibly use all the information for. And I have found out that it is used to create with. I explained that it seems as though our universe is constantly expanding as we journey outward, increasing our experiences and our knowledge. Then it seems as though it reaches a point where it is at its limit of expansion and begins to return back to source or implode back on itself. Is that when we finally return home with all the knowledge of everything we have experienced? Is that when we reach the point when we can rest finally and stay with God? Then it seems as though once everything has imploded upon itself, it explodes out again in a constant cycle. She asked, is there ever a point when we stop? A point when we just cease to be and become nothing? I don't believe so, because everything is energy, and energy never dies. It just changes shape and form. She could not see the point in returning again and again to the same universe and experiencing all the millions of lessons in different forms. There would come a point when we would have experienced everything that was possible, and then we should just cease to be. A man in the class supplied the perfect answer. He said, yes, we could experience all there is to know in this universe, but there are millions upon millions of other universes that contain worlds and creatures that we cannot even imagine. As it is written in this book, there are universes that obey totally different laws of physics, places where planets are square instead of round, and etc. There must be countless experiences awaiting us in these other places, so even if we finally exhaust the possibilities of this solitary universe, there are millions more to explore. And maybe each time the universe explodes out and then implodes in and explodes out again in its own reincarnation cycle, we are sent to explore something else. The possibilities are endless, and so is the progression of our soul. As long as God remains curious and wants to learn new experiences to add to his storehouse of knowledge, we are useful to add to his creative powers. Thus, we constantly return to our home, where there is great love and rejuvenative powers, and thus we will never die. Okay, so in the chapter, structure is not important, the client has experienced tons of lives in different forms that are of all kinds. So Dolores asks what was the purpose of the client experiencing so many different things, and the client under hypnosis says, to get the whole manifestation back together, to get a synthesis of all different manifestations and bring them back to the source. So Dolores then says, then what does the source do with all these manifestations? And the client said, it feels like it's becoming bigger and more whole and more multifaceted and richer. Okay, so I'm assuming that basically God is a culmination of all the experiences ever of every being, at least for this universe. I'm not sure about other universes or how they work, but at least speaking of our universe, it must be like a data collector of information, and he's basically a huge data storage thing. God, I don't want to say him or her, it, I don't know how to, there is no label for it, I guess, because it's everything. So yeah, it's a huge data storage, but it's also capable of creating life. Okay, in the chapter, excuse me, in the chapter, everything has consciousness. These 20-foot tall energy beings create these robotic droids or like tiny machines to serve them. And these machines are working constantly. And the client said they were one of these before in another life. And that the existence of being one is like terrible, because no one knows that they're sentient. No one knows that they're like alive and conscious. So they're like being mistreated and like enslaved. The client said that this life has no hope and no choice. It's just like being a slave. It's a dismal life of repetitive drudgery. But of course, there is a lesson with every life. So when Dolores asked why the soul chose to incarnate as that robot, the client said because she was one of those 20-foot tall careless beings as well, and wanted to experience the effect that the tall beings were having on the robots. So what better way to do that than to incarnate as a robot that you didn't think would have consciousness but did. And I don't even think the beings were aware that these little robots had consciousness. So basically, the law of karma, of cause and effect, is not strictly a human thing only experienced on Earth. It is much farther reaching. It is a law that encompasses planets and universes, and it also applies to beings of such power that we can only imagine or guess at. Nothing and no one is exempt. What goes around comes around. You must experience being on the other side of anything you create or cause another to experience. If we truly understood this law, there would be no judgment and no prejudice, because we would know that if we judge too harshly or were prejudiced, we would be compelled to return as the very thing that we were prejudiced against. How else to learn the lesson? We have to experience being on both sides of the coin. If this law were truly recognized and put into practice, there would be no wars and no violence, and heaven on earth would become a reality. And I also need to mention that I've been noticing after a soul is done with an incarnation, they go to the council of elders. They kind of don't have a choice to. They're kind of pulled by them to them with like a force. And with this council, they discuss in a meeting what life to experience next. So they'll like show you examples of which life to incarnate to next. And what's really cool is that all the examples they show you, you have to live them. You have to incarnate them as being an incarnation of that life at some point. You don't get out of it. You have to do it. It's all part of your like soul pattern or something, or your soul's mission. But basically you can't really like avoid it. But you do get to choose the order of how you want to do the next incarnation. And a lot of souls will choose to just immediately go from one life to the next, which is kind of not the best. You kind of have to go to back to source to kind of cleanse yourself of all the trauma and all of that junk, right? Okay. I really like the chapter Survival. Dolores asks, why aren't we allowed to remember when we come to Earth? And the subconscious of the client said this: because of what we need to learn here. It would interfere if they remembered. I think people come here for that drama. It's part of that experience to work through those heavy, dramatic, emotional experiences. But hopefully it'll change. It'll lighten up. We can't remember, or we wouldn't be able to do the things we need to do when we're here. There's a rush of souls coming to Earth because they want to experience the shift that's going to happen when the Earth shifts. It will shift the entire universe. Yes, the entire universe. And you wouldn't think that one tiny little planet at the far end of a small galaxy would have that much importance, but it does. I think it's strategically placed. I think it has to do with sacred geometry, but that's all I know. This experience is going to be very dramatic. It will send energy waves throughout the whole universe when this happens. Okay. The chapter called The Black Hole Energy was not really what I thought. I was actually really excited to read it, but it was nothing of what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to explain like in detail what black holes really are. It does give an explanation, but I kind of wanted something more. But here we go. Okay. Supposedly these odd-looking beings are able to harness the energy of black holes and disperse it to Earth when needed, because supposedly they can use that condensed energy from the black hole to heal. So take that in. And now I'm going to read the back and forth from the chapter, like 2 pages of it, because I think it's really important. Okay. This is what the entity speaking is saying. What I'm being shown is you're looking at the cosmos and you see it as being black with planets and stars and whatever. Then you picture that black as being a fabric or anything, all one solid thing. It could even be, if you want to picture it as plastic, but picture the cosmos as one solid thing. Then from the right and from the left, 2 pieces of it come toward each other. So like literally like fabric, right? As they are moving toward each other, where they're kind of crumbling up in the middle, it starts an energy that begins turning. And that's what causes a black hole. It's almost like you have rock under the ground here that moves and causes an earthquake because of the pressure. So that's the example that they give. So the energies of the cosmos come together and cause a vortex. And he says, no, they're telling me not a vortex. They're telling me think of it as pressure. They cause it pressure as it's pushing together. And that is what causes the energies to become so compressed. And that's what we work with, that compressed energy. And somehow they use that energy to heal the planet, and I think people in the planet. I have no idea how, but then again, remember I said earlier, everything is energy and all energy can be transmuted. And obviously if you're a higher dimensional being like that and are aware of what your abilities and what you can do, what you're aware of, I guess you can turn any energy into whatever you want it to be, right? So Dolores says, the scientists say nothing exists in the black hole. And the entity says, yes, they say everything is sucked into it. It is very dense, is what I was getting. They keep saying pressure, pressure, pressure. And then Dolores says that nothing can exist within it. What do they say? And the entity says, the entity said, they're showing it as if there's a black hole right there. One of the people is saying, well, look at me. And he jumps in it and jumps out and jumps in it and jumps out. And he says, hey, I can exist. And they're saying that we can carry that energy. That's why we're going to be to the earth. We mostly learn what effects happened since the last group of people came down and brought black hole energy. So we learn all these things, and at the same time we are dispensing black hole energy. Then we go back and report, here's what things look like now, so we exist with the black hole energy. And then Dolores says, but don't our scientists say that everything is sucked in and nothing can get out? And the being said, yes, and they keep giving the word pressure, pressure, pressure. There's so much pressure there. They're saying that we work it, we're able to go in and out, in and out. We bring some of the black hole energy with us. We disperse some of it. We couldn't bring a whole black hole down, it would be too much energy. They're telling me just little pieces are what we work with. So it's a very, very powerful condensed energy. And then Dolores says, we've also heard that if something was sucked in, it would come out somewhere else. And the entity said, like a white hole. That's what some physicists call it, I guess. And Dolores said, but they say spaceships or things like that would not be able to escape the draw of a black hole. It would pull them into it. And then the entity says, yes, when I was trying to find out about what would happen, I just kept getting pressure, pressure, pressure. They're showing me this one area. They're saying that we are evidently a certain vibration that can handle the energy and work with it. And if a spaceship was a certain vibration, they could also handle it. They could go in and out if they were the right vibration. Dolores says, is the theory correct that if you were sucked into it, you would come out on another part of the galaxy or somewhere else? And the entity says, the one who was jumping in and out of the small one said, come with me. It's almost like we're floating through the air. And so we're at this very small black hole. It's only as big as a house, but it's still the same kind of, I didn't take a picture of the remainder, but it was basically, so if you didn't really understand what I was reading, basically what happened was these beings were showing the subconscious that they could easily jump in and out of a black hole because they have the ability to manipulate their own energy, I guess their own matrix or DNA or whatever you would call it. They were able to manipulate their own energy form so that they could survive through that black hole. And I don't know how many people, how many beings could do that, but they can, and I thought that was pretty awesome. They also mentioned that the pressure of the black hole is not in terms of the physics that we know, like atmospheric or fluid pressure. He's talking about energy pressure, energy just being pushed, and it's not like something becoming denser. It's many different energies being pressurized. It's not the same as if you took a solid and pressurized it. The entity also says that it's not the way the scientists think it is, that it's a different law of pressurization. And also different black holes have different amounts of pressure. And this entity said that the ones of his kind don't necessarily live in black holes, but they can be in black holes and utilize them with no harm to them because of their vibratory rate. And also, black holes aren't really portals, but they can be used as portals. Okay, in the chapter, The Volunteers, Dolores goes more in depth into the concept of imprinting. Did I mention that in the last video? I don't know, but I'm gonna explain it here. So basically, one of her most common clients, Phil, that's obviously not his real name, but that's just the name that she uses for him in the book. She had been doing lots of past life therapy for him, and come to find out later on that supposedly he's actually never had a life on Earth before this current one. So what that is an imprint of memories, an imprint of past lives in his mind. Because look, the lives he was reliving through the past life therapy were only imprints, memories that were placed there by the council. Pretty sure it's by the council. But basically, the condensed version is that a soul can't exist on Earth in a human environment without the information and data of past lives in its subconscious. It just has to have something to relate to and fall back on. Otherwise, everything is too new and too drastic and too overwhelming. So that's why there's a lot of cases of people saying that they were, I don't know, Jesus in a past life, they were Cleopatra, and I don't know, anyone, right? If there's multiple people saying that they were that same thing, it kind of contradicts the thing of past lives. But I mean, you would think that, but it doesn't, because of the imprint, and the imprint is given to that soul, that spark that needs that memory in their soul memory, so that when they incarnate, maybe not in this earth life but other lives, it's gonna, that information in their I guess data or subconscious is gonna help them later on. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. That's what an imprint is. Okay, so before your soul comes into your body, it is allowed to pick other people's lives from the vast inventory in the Akashic records that it thinks will benefit it when it enters the physical. Yeah, so that's what I was just saying. But yeah, supposedly they get it from the Akashic records. Okay, Dolores asked, how will I know the difference when I work with someone? How will I be able to tell if they are remembering an actual lifetime or an imprint? And the answer that came through was that you actually can't tell the difference. The imprint becomes as real as an actual life. All the memories, emotions, and feelings are there. The only difference really is that the imprint carries only information with it and not karma. So that is the distinguishing factor that is really important to know and remember. The imprint memory is just information. It does not have karma contained in it. Okay. So Dolores then later says that she has been able to figure out if a lifetime is an imprint or not simply by just asking the subconscious. Okay, in that same chapter, a different client sees God as a ball of light, life energy. And that God is also referred to as the great central sun. I don't know if I've mentioned that label before, but they have before in the book. Also, in the series. Also, the fairy tales and legends that we have in our minds as a collective, think of like fairies, mermaids, dragons, unicorns, etc., all of them. All these creatures were actually real at some point. Some of them not on Earth, but other planets, and they all have a basis in truth. Even the Cyclops, which is mentioned in book 4. I'm reading book 4 right now. I'm already like on page 200, which is great, and I'm so happy. So yeah, the Cyclops, they existed on Earth way before we did. And if you don't know what the Cyclops are, they're the ones, those large mythical creatures with one eye. Okay, I want to include this in the video, something that I made up to release karma. Yes, I made this up on my own. I am not taking this from anyone, but I've kind of learned how to make my own I don't know if you would call this a mantra or an affirmation or like a prayer. I don't know what you would call this. But this is a phrase to release all karma. And I have already done this. Okay. So here it goes. Write it down. Get your notebook out or get your iPhone out to type this up. Okay. I release and dissolve and tear up any and all karmic contracts I have with souls. I am no longer karmically connected to those I have karma with. I release you and forgive you. I choose to let go of the karmic ties that I have with anyone. I also forgive myself for any and all karmic ties that I have created. End quote. Okay. Side note also, I watched a Dolores Cannon video on Gaia, and she was saying that your life purpose can be just to be. That your energy is so pure, and by interacting with people or even being around people, you don't even have to talk to them. You're affecting them in a positive way through your energy. So yes, your purpose can be so simple to just exist. Finally, I have proof of that. I think I mentioned that in my The Purpose of Everything video. Okay. In the chapter Returning to the Source, an entity gave a good house clearing prayer. Okay, this is another one that you want to maybe write down. So this is they called it a prayer to clear your house of energies. And this is it. Okay. Peace be to this house. Bless this home, bless this house, bless us. I ask that all harmful and negative things be sent to Source to be transmuted. I release it to Source and have anything that's harmful and negative here to be transmuted into love and blessings that are of the highest and best good. End quote. Okay. In the chapter Parallel Worlds, Dolores said she asked the subconscious about simultaneous time. She said, how is it possible that everything is happening at the same time? We know we start out as a baby, grow into a child, and finally an adult. We see it as a linear progression. But how can it all be happening at the same time? The subconscious answered with this. Because it's not all happening at the same time. That denotes a beginning and an end. It is existing at the same time. And that's all they mention about that. So you let that soak in how you want and interpret that how you want. Okay, that's all up to you on how to interpret that. Okay. And to be honest, the chapter The Void had me a little confused at some parts. One of the entities in the chapter was saying, it's important that we forget, because in bringing whatever lesson or light into another existence, if we knew who we were, if we knew we could do certain things, or that it was only a temporary stay, that we're there to do a task and go back, it would give a bias to what is happening, because there are certain light codes that we give off when we're in these places. So yeah, I was just, I don't know, a little confused on that. Towards the end of the chapter, the entity was saying that we are all God. He wants us to be equals to him. He wants us to ask him questions, to be challenged, not to be thinking, oh, I have to bow down to this. It's the questioning, it's being equal. He is a part of us, and therefore he wants us to share equally with respect. It is not that we are to go blindly seeing faith and going whatever someone's telling you to do. That's not what he wants, and that's fine. Okay, and then the part that had me shook was this. The entity was saying that everything comes from nothingness, the void. And Dolores says, is that nothingness comparable to the source, or are those two different things? And the entity says, it's the source. And then Dolores says, I've heard the source being described as only light. And the entity responds with, it is the darkness from which the light comes. It is beyond light. From my vantage point, I can tell you that the light comes from the darkness. Not to confuse darkness with evil or anything negative. It is just simply that which contains light. And from my vantage point, that is the source. There may be something behind that, but that is what I see from where I am. The nothingness. And from the nothingness comes the light. And from the light comes the differentiation that we call the somethingness. So that was deep. And I swear I've heard that somewhere else, that like that's supposedly kind of why when we close our eyes there's nothing. Like, it's, I guess you would say, black instead of white, because it's easier to create from nothing than with, I guess, light. I don't know. And this is a little random quote that I liked from the book. God is always experiencing. There is no good or evil. There is only the experiencing. I mean, I butchered that. Let me try it again. The quote is, God is always experiencing. There is no good or evil. There is only the experience. Okay. In the chapter, A Different Law of Creation in Physics, Dolores asks the subconscious why it chose to leave the source if the source was nothing but pure love and light. And she also asks, you felt you couldn't create from that beautiful place from home? And the subconscious said, oh no, it's not the same. Creation starts from there, but simply to create is just not enough. One must also experience, and that is what we have to do. Not only to create, but to then go and experience, to bring that back to source. So once again, more proof that God is a accumulator of information and experience. I'm not going to read all this out, but there's this page where this entity was in a jungle in Africa, and it was about to get like eaten or something, or attacked by a tiger. Yeah, a tiger. And all the entity had to do was literally blow, I don't know, I guess energy or something, blow at the tiger, and the tiger just like ran off. And supposedly the entity saved the little boy because he was going to be a doctor that was going to save like a village or something later on in the future. So awesome. And it's amazing because it shows that divine intervention is real. But that's the thing, it's like the law of non-intervention or non-interference. So why was that entity allowed to do that from the outside? They're not allowed to. I don't know. They must have stayed within the rules somehow. I don't know. But I've seen a lot of videos where like people get almost attacked by like an elephant or like a rhino or something, and something just like makes them stop. There is literally invisible energy there that you don't see that is making those animals stop. I am telling you 1000% it is true. Okay. Okay, this is from the chapter Creation of the Oceans. So first of all, I don't know if I'm going to mention it in here because I don't remember what really the picture says here, but supposedly the oceans were created first on this planet, and then thousands of years later or millions of years later the land was created. So first the oceans, and then a little bit of ocean life, and then immediately after it was the land. And the ocean was created by a group of souls. Supposedly it wasn't the council, but this is pretty important. I think that's why I took a screenshot of it. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the entity is saying, we see infinity, and we will try to translate in the sense that if you were to look, you will be looking forever, continuously in the end. That's how the universe is. So the universe is infinite, and systems and universes have been created custom all the time. So, and then Dolores said, so they don't necessarily overlap or get in the way of each other. And the entity says, they are a different vibration too, so they can cohabitate within the same geographic area, the same space, but without touching or overlapping. They are vibrating at different frequencies unless a doorway is open between them. We are using your terminology. We meant a portal. This is possible to go from one to the other. And Dolores said, so people who could find these portals would be able to go from one universe to another? And the entity said, those who go between universes already know the knowledge. They don't need to find it. And, sorry. Don't need to find it. Okay. And Dolores says, I've been told about different dimensions. Is this different than different universes? And the entity said, we see that within a dimension, you have universes. We cannot fully explain or express what we see of our understanding. Within a plane are several dimensions, and within a dimension are several universes. We are sorry that we cannot explain clearly. However, the point being made here is that universes we hear cohabitate. They can be within the same area. And then Dolores says, but first the universes are created and then the other steps are taken. And the entity says, yes, first there are dimensions, and then within dimensions are universes which are created, and within universes are planetary systems which are created. We counsel on the universal and also on the planetary system, since universes are made of planetary systems. We are of 9 councils who counsel in this specific system. And also, it's like the middle of the video, I think. But I want to mention that I am just, for those of you that haven't watched my other videos on this series, I am just the reporter. I am just the messenger of this information. I love this information. I love learning this. It resonates with me. Some stuff is a little confusing. I don't understand 100% of the information that I read from this book. It is a lot of information. And I have taken a lot of steps to get to this understanding. I feel like most people won't even understand this stuff. They won't accept it, they'll reject it. And also, yeah, I just kind of wanted to say that I'm just the messenger of this information. And I am sharing it to you in this format because, I don't know, it's easier to just have nuggets instead of reading a whole 700-page book, because that was literally a 700-page book. And a lot of people, I guess, don't have the time to do that. They'd rather have the time to read like an hour-long video, or however long this video is, 40, 50 minutes long. But yes. So, let's see what's next. Yeah, and I'm just reading the notes that I took while reading the book of the stuff that I found the most profound. Okay. And that same entity, the one that I just talked about, was also saying that sometimes it's not just about learning lessons, but more of being able to experience. Because at a certain level, the lesson had already been transcended. There is, in itself, no longer a need for lessons to be learned. However, there is still a need for the experience to be experienced and integrated in the whole. I thought that was cool. Super random, but I wanted to include this. I was watching an Elizabeth April video where someone asked in the comments about the mandatory vaccinations for COVID, and Elizabeth said, anything that we put into our bodies can be overridden by our consciousness. Your vibrational frequency is more powerful than the atomic vessel that is housed around it. And I just wanted to mention that. Think about that, sit on that. I don't really know what to say on the vaccinations or if they become mandatory. I haven't made up I haven't like really had my own thoughts yet, to be honest, because I've just been reading so much, so I'm just getting other people's thoughts and energies into my head. So I haven't really had that much time to freak think, to be honest. But as soon as I'm finished with this series, 2 more books left, and I will be able to finally think. Okay. In the chapter Help in the Time of Chaos, we go back to talking about the new earth. So the entity that was speaking was telling Dolores that even if you wanted to stay and help the people in the old earth, you couldn't, because at that point, it's not about your intentions anymore. It's about frequency and vibration. Everyone will be given the opportunity. Whether they can hold that vibration or not is up to them individually. There will be no judgment made on them. They will simply be able to hold the energy or not. These humans won't be destroyed, but placed in an appropriate space for the vibration they are emitting. And the entity was also saying that when we go to the new earth, for a short while, we take our physical bodies, but shortly after, mankind in the new earth will become pure energy. In the chapter, Those Left Behind, the entity mentions that not just beings from our universe are watching these major shifts in the earth, but beings from multiple universes. So guys, we are being watched by not just beings in our universe, but other universes. So we are being watched by so many to see how we make this transition to a higher dimension as a collective. The entity also mentions that consciousness on this planet was created in a unique way to be able to experience itself as separate. Most races do not see that. Regardless of where they are, they don't experience themselves as separate from their source. But for some reason, our planet was created that way, to be experienced as detached from source. And Elizabeth April said that Earth is one of, if not the hardest and most difficult planet to be on and to incarnate on. So the people that are here and the people that come here are brave and crazy people, because it's such a dense planet and it's such a hard place to be in. But just knowing that, you could still transcend that. You can still make it heaven on earth. At least I believe that. Okay. I don't know what chapter this is from. I think this is a chapter, Those Left Behind. But I took a picture of it because it's... Oh yeah, I think it is. Those Left Behind. Okay, the entity is saying... Oh no. Dolores says, there is a question people have asked me, and I think you have answered part of it. That if some are taken and some are left behind, we're talking about the new earth, wouldn't those that go on to the new world notice the other members in their family were gone? There are some things I'm still trying to clarify in our way of thinking. I have to be able to explain it to people. And the entity says, we understand. We understand. We will give you this explanation. We hope this helps. People are going to start falling out of people's lives. They're going to start noticing them falling away, which I have, and it's like always happening, so I feel like it's completely normal too. They're going to start noticing them falling away quite rapidly now. In other words, people, family members, whoever they have been close to, just falling away, disappearing. It will all happen overnight. So by the time the shift happens, some of those people will already have fallen out of their life and will separate, will just disappear and not be around. So-and-so moved over here, left town, did this, do you understand? And Dolores says, yes, but we could go to the police and try to find the person, and the entity said, it won't happen that way. It will be them moving away. Something happened, distancing. By the time it actually occurs, the distance will be there. Haven't you had people fall out of your life lately? Haven't you had people fall out of your life lately? And Dolores said, yeah, of course, we could always contact them though if we needed to. And the entity said, but you won't. That's our point. You won't contact them. It will just be a natural falling away. The frequencies and the vibrations will no longer match, and therefore they will fall out of your mind. The need to contact them won't be there anymore. And Dolores said, and this means that they're either staying with the old earth or they're going on to the new one? To which the entity said, in some cases, there have been those that have left early and are working on the other side of the veil. You're aware of that, but some of those that disappear after a period of time, you think, I wonder what happened to this person. But you don't have the urge to contact them like you used to. You don't have that driving urge of, oh, I'm concerned, I must call, I must reach out. That's not the same. You must find that your need to connect with them just isn't there. It just falls away and you forget. And then Dolores said, I've been told that at first, those who enter the new world will still have physical bodies, so we won't so we won't know when we have actually made the shift, the separation. Is that correct? And the entity said, that may be too simplistic of a description. For those of you that came in to bridge this, we'll explain it this way. Oh, I didn't finish the picture, but I think I explained it here in my notes. Okay, so apparently people that are helping, oops, sorry, a little too close. So apparently people that are helping with the changes in vibration for others is called a bridge. So if I help you change your vibration from a low one to a high one, you would call me a bridge, as an example. So a bridge from the low to the high vibration. So the faster that you raise more people, they activate other people with their frequencies and vibrations. So now that I gave you high vibrations, your high vibrations are going to be given to other people who have low vibrations. And then, you know, it starts a chain reaction. So what you're doing is activating more and more people on the planet, which activates others, which raises the frequency of the planet. This is how it's meant to be, and I think this is what the 144,000 are here to do. Everything affects everything else. You have people that come to Earth and don't have to do anything. They are just strictly activators. Their energy fields activate everybody else's, which I feel like that's what I am. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. But finally, again, more proof that your purpose in life can be to do nothing, but just be. You don't even have to talk to people. And I think it's funny because I think it was this book that said, it's funny that the people that are having one of the greatest impacts on people are the ones that affect people's energy fields through their own energy fields because their vibration's so high. But the entity was saying the problem is that those people usually do not like people or like being around people. And so it's kind of like, I guess you could have a stronger effect on raising the vibration if you do communicate with people and interact with them instead of just simply the energy, like your auric field touching theirs, you know what I mean? So yeah. Okay, so kind of a long story short, but in the chapter, physical effects as the body changes. Oh my god, this blazer is so tight on me. That's like all I wear, right? Just blazers. The entities were able to neutralize the effects of steroids on this woman. Not steroids like bodybuilding steroids, but steroids like medicinal kind of. They neutralized it so that it would not affect the body in a negative way. So I guess this kind of proves Dolores. This kind of proves Elizabeth April's earlier comment about the mandatory vaccine, that they're able to neutralize the effects of it. They neutralize it so that it would not affect the body in a negative way. It is flushed out of the system as a harmless byproduct. They have the ability to do this, to neutralize any medication that is not needed and flush it out of the system. So this makes me seriously question if, God forbid, these vaccines for COVID somehow became mandatory, will these beings that we work with neutralize the negative effects of these vaccines? I think we can do it on our own as well, you guys. And I think so, especially if it's in our soul contract to keep living. I'm sure they're going to do everything to keep us alive. So in the chapter, The Library, the entity says, once your vibration gets to a certain level, you're beyond the have to pay karma back. That's why it's not important to pursue questions about past lives anymore, because they're no longer important since the new earth will have no karma. And also eating lighter and healthier is optimal because the body will live longer when it doesn't have to work as hard. Eventually we'll move into an all liquid diet because the lighter the physical body is, the easier the ascension. Then after we move to the new earth, there's a possibility of not eating at all. And at this point, we'll be living off pure energy. We'll be living off of pure energy, just like the beings that Dolores speaks to. And then this is from the chapter, A Totally New Alternative to a Walk-In. And it also explains what walk-ins are. I don't know if I've explained what they are before, but this is everything that Dolores wrote in the book. So this is her her notes. The thing that was different and unusual about this session was not the fact that it was a walk-in. I've encountered many of them during my career. It was the type of walk-in that made this case unique. Normally, a walk-in occurs when the person decides they do not want to be in this life anymore. For whatever reason, they want to leave, but suicide is not an option. Why destroy a perfectly good vehicle when another soul would be more than happy to use it? So they make an agreement with another soul, usually one that they already know up there. Where did I leave off? Okay, and have association with, that they will leave, and the incoming soul will take over the body at that exact moment. So it's an exact and immediate change, swap. None of this is done with the conscious involvement or motivation. The consciousness of the person usually has no inkling that anything has occurred except that things seem to change in their life. The incoming soul makes an agreement that it will take on and complete any agreements the person has made with others, any karma that must be repaid, and any contracts made before coming into this life. The walk-in must honor these commitments and complete them before it can go on with its own reasons for coming in. This is a normal walk-in. What makes Christine's case different is that the incoming soul did not know her from any prior incarnations. It had no connections with her. It, in fact, had had very few lives on earth in a human body. It was being sent by a higher power. It was still with agreement with Christine's soul. It must always be understood that these cases are definitely not possession, not invasion, not taking over the body, okay? It always is done with permission. If it's not on a conscious level, it's on a subconscious level. Apparently, Christine was unhappy about the loss and closeness. I didn't finish that. That's not important. Sorry. Okay. In the chapter, The Final Solution, the client under hypnosis is one that was last here when Atlantis was around, and his job is actually to destroy planets when they've gone too far with power and greed. And he literally started crying in the hypnosis session because he realized that he was on Earth again, and he realized that this should have been fixed already when he ended Atlantis with the help of others like him. So it's not just him that has the ability to do this, but others. I guess it's like a group. His job is to help literally destroy the planet if it came to it, due to whoever's in charge corrupting the planet. He's called the Final Solution, and I am hoping that does not come to pass, because that would not be good. And I'm pretty sure the Galactic Federation is doing everything they possibly can to not let us be in that trajectory for our timeline, because them and so many other beings have put so much work into us and helping us evolve that, I don't know, they're just going to do everything that they possibly can without breaking the law of non-intervention to make that come true. Okay, last chapter, and this is where I'm going to end the video. My beliefs really started getting convoluted in the last chapter. It's called the Absorption. So Dolores was asking if the sparks, because we branched off of source as sparks. So if you can imagine source energy or God as like a big ball of light and just love and light, and like in this purest form, we branch off of that as sparks. And it's never the entire spark that is incarnated on Earth, because that would be way too much energy. It would literally explode the planet. Like, it's so much energy. Like we as sparks, sorry about that noise, we as sparks are so powerful, which is why we are splintered in fractals. That's why we have parallel lives all at the same time, because if our entire soul of ourself was in one body or one incarnation, it would be too much for the body. I think even if it was like a 12th dimensional body, they don't have bodies really, but I think you see what I mean. It would just be too much energy. It's just like so powerful. That's how powerful just one little spark of source is. Okay, so Dolores was asking if the sparks that we branched off as from the source, if the purpose of the sparks were to gather and accumulate information to then bring back to God. And the powerful entity was saying that God is all-knowing and that the information is only brought back for the spark's benefit because God already knows all. So once again, it's contradicting what we learned earlier. Dolores mentions as a side note to the readers that the session was disturbing her because it was contradicting her past sessions with other entities that claimed that God needs all these experiences absorbed into God because that's how he learns, through beings experiencing lifetimes, then taking back the information gathered back to source. And crazy enough, the entity says that the God that we know of is just one plane of reality, one plane of existence. So take what you will. I still don't know what to believe yet, or what resonates with me to be the truth, or a part of the truth, but apparently the God that we know of is just the creator of our universe, because there are things that are even beyond God. But the entity said that it couldn't speak more of that. I guess it's too deep for us to know. This chapter was difficult to understand, especially because, not to be rude, but the entity kind of had trouble using the right words to speak. But just the knowing that there is even more beyond what we know as God and Source is, I would say, I guess beyond my comprehension, but like not really, because if Source and God is the creator of our universe, there's different sources then. And there has to be, so if every universe has their own source, because there's multiple dimensions within universes and different universes within dimensions, there has to be something that everything comes from the whole multiverse. I'm speaking in the broadest sense, like in all the dimensions and realities, there has to be something else then that we don't even know what it is. I thought I knew when just learning all about God, but apparently that's not even it. Like, there's still so much more beyond God. There's still more beyond the nothingness and oh my God, okay. So more exists beyond all dimensions and all realities, but I guess it's not time yet to know this, but I know we will someday, right?